It's not. I've got the outro music on our last one, but you know, oh well, it's the way it works. It's been an abrupt halt. There it is. It's funny. I get on this side and I'm like, I don't know where the button is. I don't know this perspective. Mic check. Okay, perfect. In 3, 2, 1. Athletes, take your mark. Get set. It's time for the Addict to Athlete podcast. Hey, everybody out there, Coach Blue Robinson here. I want to thank you all so much for hanging in with us as we did that crazy little 5-month hiatus, it seems like. We finally were able to get things tuned back in, and the Addict to Athlete podcast is well in effect. So thank you so much. And we've learned a lot about podcasting and hosting and not tinkering with things that aren't broken. And so, hey, let that be a lesson to you in your recovery, in your life. If it's not broke, don't try and fix it. I mean, that's a standard issue thing. But we'd love for you to jump on the website, addicttoathlete.org. You'll find backlog podcast information about the team, how to start a chapter of Addict to Athlete in your community, and really kind of get you to that starting line of recovery. I have a great guest in studio. We're not even on Riverside this time. We're in studio, having just completed another podcast recording for the Agents of Recovery podcast. I've wanted to invite this guy in here for quite a while, but now he's got the podcasting voice pretty much under wrap. This is Wendell Wood. Wendell, welcome to the Addict to Athlete podcast.
Yeah, thank you.
So funny because literally we've been doing the Agents of Recovery now since I think like November, October.
Yeah.
We started recording. Yeah.
I think it was in November.
And now I'm like, dude, why have I not had Wendell on the Addict Athlete podcast? Well, here we are, the official start, I guess, of your career. You got to pass this hoop, even though you are well seasoned now. But I wanted to bring Wendell on for a few reasons. One, because he's become a great friend and a teammate of mine, but also to kind of, I guess, maybe promote our second podcast, the Agents of Recovery, which we've had for quite a while. And things have shifted a little bit with hosts, and brought Wendell on after he's like, we should resurrect that thing because it helped me and I know it can help a lot of people. And I really kind of naively thought, well, we'll give you a shot and see what it brings. And I'm blown away at the level of just, heart and compassion and understanding that Wendell brings to the Agents of Recovery podcast. That's a podcast that we do weekly as well, can be found on all the platforms, but we talk specifically about men's issues, about mental health, about recovery, about pornography addiction, behavioral addictions. And Wendell, I guess what I want to officially do is, get the team behind you to get a feel for who you are. Let's talk a little bit about how you and I found each other, and kind of that time where I said, I need you to start coming to Addict to Athlete. And you're like, well, I'm not a runner. And you kind of proved that wrong, because not only did you accomplish some amazing running tasks, but now you're pretty much the backbone of our cycling team, let's be honest. So welcome to the program, brother. Jump in here. Tell us a little bit about you.
Oh, I appreciate that. And I do feel it's kind of been a long time coming to be on the podcast, especially with Addict to Athlete. I want to say Agents of Recovery, but
we literally just finished recording like 15 minutes ago. So if you do that, it's fine.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And where to even begin? My introduction to you actually was through the Agents of Recovery podcast. I can't remember exactly. I think it was you and Max Hall. I think you guys did a podcast. I think it was with a KSL podcast. I think it was Casey. I can't remember if it was with Casey. I can't remember exactly who it was with. But anyways, I heard you and Max and you guys were talking about the Agents of Recovery podcast. And, I'm a shocker, spoiler alert, I'm a big BYU fan. I don't know if you knew that or not, but, my dad worked at BYU for 40 years. And I grew up basically in the shadow of BYU and on campus and everything else, and graduated from BYU, but big BYU guy, big sports guy, enjoying that kind of stuff. And when I heard that Max Hall was on there, and then I heard you, that Max had a podcast, and I tuned in. And I started listening to those, and I was like, man, this just kind of hits a little differently. And I loved that you had Max on there, and Brock as well. And I really related a lot to some of the stuff that Brock was talking about, where he's talked about his struggles, not just with, him being injured in the line of duty and, the pain pills and that addiction that began for him, but he was also really vulnerable.
Yeah.
He talked about, his struggles with pornography and even sexual abuse and that kind of stuff when he was younger. And I just really related with that. And so, anyways, I heard about that, and then at that time, I was going through a lot of my own struggles and issues with my marriage, with my own self, with just all these feelings, and everything that had been happening in my life at that time that led up to all the chaos
Yeah.
that became my life for a long time there. And with that, I'm pretty sure that was about the time when I got in more trouble and needed more help. And so I reached out to you after hearing that. And I'm like, wait a second, this guy's local? Like he's in Springville? Like, and I'm like, well, no, he's on the radio. He's on the podcast. Like he must be, too busy. And so I poured my heart out in an email to you. I don't know
Yeah.
if you remember that.
I do.
But said, look, everything's kind of going downhill and I need a lot of help. And I don't know if you do this, but I'd love to meet with you. And I actually didn't even know anything about Addict Athlete at the time.
Hmm.
And so I did meet with you that first time, and a couple times later you're like, hey, you should come check out these groups that I'm doing, this Addict Athlete thing. And I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, like you said, I'm like, oh, I can't run anymore.
I remember you saying that. I'm not a
Yeah.
runner.
Yeah.
And legitimately, you had some knee problems, but you were like,
Yeah.
let's see what happens. I don't know.
Yeah, and it was crazy because, like, even then, like, I mean, I was in high school, right?
Hmm.
I ran track, I ran cross country. I enjoyed that. That was kind of part of my identity,
Yeah.
but I had several knee surgeries, and my family has a long history of knees and joints and replacements and all that kind of stuff. And so I'd kind of convinced myself and allowed other people to convince me, that hey, you shouldn't do that, because if you do that, you could hurt yourself even more. And just kind of like this fear, like, so I'm like, yeah, okay,
The
so
Debbie Downers out there,
yeah,
huh?
yeah, exactly. And so I kind of convinced myself that I wasn't
Hmm.
anymore. And then, you mentioned about the groups, and I started coming. I was like, oh, this is
Oh, this is
kind of
different.
cool, right? This whole idea, I had have had struggled with pornography and sexual addiction pretty much my whole life.
Hmm.
I like to say that my introduction to my sex education, or my introduction to that, was through childhood abuse,
Yeah.
sexual abuse, at a very young age. I think it was,
Right.
can't remember. And I always beat myself up for not remembering exactly the dates and timelines and stuff, and I got to let that go. But
Yeah.
at a young age, at 7, 8 years old, and sexually abused for a period, and groomed for a good 3 to 4 years.
Hmm.
And that was my sex education. Like, that's how I understood and learned about all this stuff. And it's not okay, and it's not
No.
the way it should have happened. And my brain wasn't ready for that. My body wasn't ready for that, and all that other stuff. And so that basically led me into a lifelong struggle. And so, I had bouts of, we'll say, sobriety, bouts of, abstaining and that kind of stuff, but I never really truly understood, or took the time to, or had the tools really to understand all that stuff.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
yeah.
And that's the thing. I think that when you jump on the Agents of Recovery podcast, you'll hear a lot more of that. But for Wendell, I don't think he even realized. I didn't realize that, like, literally we are the same age. I think we're separated by just a few weeks. And so when you were speaking about some of the things you'd navigated in life, it kind of followed almost a timeline similar to mine. And I'm like, that's kind of interesting that we've reached this pinnacle of life, and yet there's still things about you that you don't know. And it's
Oh, yeah.
one of the reasons I was able to grasp recovery, is because I did the same thing about going in deeper to find out what in the world is happening inside. Why am I thinking this way? Why am I feeling this way? And over the last year and a half, so to speak, last year, you have really done a lot of soul searching, man. And things didn't turn out the way that you thought they would when you first rolled into my office in Springville. Like, what was that, circa 2020, or
Yeah.
what was that, something like that, 21, something
Yeah.
like that. But even though you couldn't have forecasted where this was headed and you had some turbulence ahead, what was your pinnacle of change where you're like, I don't know how this is going to work out, but what I know is that this isn't working.
Yeah.
Like, when do you make, how do you make that conversion from like, well, my best thinking got me here. Maybe I should try something different? Because Wendell, you didn't come completely novice. You had already had some recovery time. You'd already had some experiences leading groups. And like, the classic "who heals the healer." Like, you're
Yeah.
thinking, well, what can I really do? But there had to be something else inside of you that's like, maybe I'm not done yet. Maybe I've got to learn more.
Yeah. Yeah. And like you said, my background was that I've struggled with this my whole life. And I've, growing up as a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, right? And that kind of shaped and defined, me. Served a mission for 2 years in Brazil and love the Brazilian people.
That's
And
why my brother-in-law Jerem likes you.
I was gonna
Yeah.
say shout out to Jerem and
Mhm.
Ainda Bang. So, but that kind of shaped me, and so, struggled with that and the idea of, shame and that kind of culture and, that I wasn't enough and not good enough. And, but it kind of led me to, the LDS 12 step program and the
Mhm.
addiction recovery program, which did a lot for me. And it really helped me, quite a bit, through those years. And like you said, I was a facilitator in that for quite a while.
Yeah.
Found a lot of hope and healing through that. And I like to say that it got me to a level, right? It got me to
Mhm.
a certain level. But at the same time, it didn't really address the core issues and the things. It addressed the behavior side of stuff and like,
Right.
oh, trying to, stop the act out behaviors and whatnot. And but it never really addressed the issue, And
Mhm.
so, um, about a year and a half ago, I had some more struggles, and I fell back into, the slip, right? Sobriety lost its purpose.
Right.
There's a lot of hard things going on. And, I was to the point where I was like, oh my gosh, right? Like, and I just didn't know what to do, where to turn. All the tools that I had received, I kind of like forgot about them and just kind of discarded them
I can do it
because
myself again, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
exactly, and went back into that idea and those thoughts of, you know, I don't need help. I know enough, or I was too proud, I think, really.
That's it too. I think that when you get to a situation where you know better, so to speak, right?
Yeah,
And then when like you are considered maybe a group member that knows what they're talking about, and you put yourself in leadership positions and stuff, it's the classic who heals the healer. You think, man, if I go in there and I start sharing actively how I'm doing, people are going to look at me like, and you're supposed to be one of our mentors.
yeah,
And I think we got to get out of that mindset. I think we got to stay away from that because fathers do this all the time. They think, well, I've got to be the head of the family, and
yeah,
we put this undue responsibility on our shoulders when it's like, no, we're human too. That's why I think it was so awesome to watch you kind of like allow sobriety to become a purpose type, pursuit for you again,
yeah,
instead of, like, yeah, staying consistently in that slip cycle.
yeah.
I was so proud of you for like surrendering with a lot of push from a person that was very influential in your life, right?
Oh, yeah,
Athlete
without a doubt.
Janice, she definitely knows what she's talking about, and I love the fact that you cared enough about her to say, you know what, you're right, I've got to do this for me, because she understands how it all works.
Yeah,
She allowed you to be you, and with some broken heart and some hope, that like you'd figure it out. Before we get to that side of the story, though, I'm curious about like how life has changed, because again, when you came in, you were kind of wanting to make sure that you could maintain what you'd already created. I mean, you had a family, you had kids, you had everything that everyone would want, but you were kind of stuck in a little bit of a dark cycle.
yeah,
And, you started meeting people here. You started seeing things in a different light. You started seeing the support of a team. You jumped right in, man, which I was super excited about, just because I knew what this team could do. Coach Blue and his therapy sessions, those are great, but like the healing that comes when you know that you found a team and you've got that support is even bigger. I started watching you do things that like a free agent would be, right?
yeah,
And I love that. The free agent means like you don't just follow one plan. You're like, oh, I'm going to go volunteer and do these aid stations. I'm going to sign up to do these runs. You came. I remember you came to one of our outdoor barbecues we had, because you definitely excelled at that as well. And you brought your kids, and I'm like, that's freaking awesome that he feels comfortable enough to do that. And slowly but surely, you started to create your life around this whole different experience. I mean, bringing Anson on, your son,
Yeah.
to be our anchor on our Salt to Saint cycling team. We wouldn't have made it without him. Um, those to me were like little doses of I guess, like effort you were putting in to say, this is my whole life. It's not just a part of me that I want to hide anymore. Like I think when you crawled out from under the shadow of the scarcity of the addiction, man, you definitely said, I'm not going back there. Like
Yeah.
this constant kind of increase. Looking back at it now, and I probably answer all those questions right now. Looking back at it now, could you even imagine where your life would be when, again, you left that first session?
No, not even close.
Man,
Not
Wendell.
even close. And it's you talked about that, and one of the memories that keeps popping into my head, is when I said, "Oh, I'm not, I can't run anymore," or whatever. And
I remember like it was yesterday.
yeah,
Uh,
and I remember that you guys had the county to
County to
county,
county
yeah,
relay.
relay.
Hmm.
And I was like, well, I can't run, but I can walk.
Yeah.
Right, because I'd been, trying to get a little healthier. I'd let a lot of that go, and so I'd been walking a lot. I've been walking at the rec center,
Hmm.
right? The
That's
little
why I knew you
track.
could do it, because you'd wake up early to go
Yeah,
hang out, at the gym with your bishop, and
yeah,
so I knew you could do it.
yeah,
But
yeah. But I had those limiting beliefs. I
hmm
didn't believe that I could, right, or that I wasn't enough. But I remember saying, I can't run, but I can walk.
hmm
And I'd been like, oh well, if I can speed walk. And so I was up there
dude,
on the track at the Orem Rec Center with all the older ladies, and they're like, trying to keep up with. And there was one that she always beat me every time. I was like, gosh dang it, and just like,
yeah, man,
and so
humbled you, huh?
yeah, oh yeah, which is good. I needed it. But I remember that, and I said, you know what, I can do a leg, right? And I remember signing up for that. And I don't even think I'd been to a meeting before. I hadn't been to a meeting yet. But I was excited because I had an Agents of Recovery T-shirt
Yep.
that I'd ordered off the website, and
I think you're like the only one that got that.
I was the first one. Yeah,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I remember I showed up, and I hadn't even been part of the team or anything else like that. But I'm like, I can do this, and it's just 3 miles or 4 miles or whatever it was. And I remember showing up in the parking lot the very first time. And
Because Sione was before you.
Sione was before me. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
he was the leg right before me. But I showed up in the parking lot down at Village Inn in Provo. And I remember like these guys had been texting me, and they're like, yeah, this is the place, be here and show up. And I was like, okay. And I showed up there, and like
And it was like what, like 11 o'clock at night? Like, when was it? It was dark. I remember that.
it was dark. Yeah, it was later. It was definitely dark.
Thinking,
And
what the crap am I doing out here with these people I don't even know at
it
11
was.
o'clock on a Friday night? Like,
It was, and
what the heck?
I didn't realize that that would change my life, because I pulled into that parking lot, and there's a truck that I pulled up into, and I was like looking around. I'm like, I don't see anybody here. Is this the right place? I'm questioning
Where's that
myself
therapist
and
of
all
mine,
of
that
that stuff,
liar?
right?
Yeah.
I'm like all this other stuff, and two big guys get out of this truck, and I'm like, okay, these guys, both of them have beards. They're just these just dudes that are like, I'm like, okay, what, what am I doing, right? Me coming from this, very, LDS family, blah blah blah, all these preconceptions and all these
Uh-huh.
things, and I was like, okay, and I get out, and they kind of get out of the truck, and I'm like, okay, what am I getting myself into here? Didn't realize that they'd be two of my best friends.
Yep.
Kenny and Earl step out of that truck, and oh my gosh, those two guys, just they put their arms around me. They welcomed me
Two of
in.
the biggest hearts I've ever
Oh my
seen.
gosh, they
Hmm.
would do anything for anybody. The biggest teddy bears you've ever met in your life.
Yep.
And they just welcomed me in, and they're like, "Hey, you're Wendell? And I'm like, yeah. And it's funny because Earl tells the story. He's like, yeah, we were looking for my dad had passed away
Mm-hmm.
recently before that. And so I had my profile picture on Facebook, like this, that's all they could see because I signed up that way.
Uh-huh.
Was this older guy. And so they thought I was
They
going to
thought you were
be,
your dad. Yeah.
yeah, they thought I was going to be this, 70-year-old guy and getting out of the truck. And they're like, this guy's going to do this. Like, what's wrong?
I just remember when we pulled up and you guys made the handoff. You took off, and they're like, "Well, how fast?" I'm like, "Well, he says he's not a runner, so he's probably just gonna power walk it." And so we stayed there for a minute, and then when we started moving to come find you, like you were a lot further than I thought. I'm like, dude, he's. And when I saw you, you were running. Like I'm not gonna lie, like you were moving. If that's a power walk, I'm blown away. But I remember that too because I'm like, that bugger, he lied to me. It's in there. But that's the thing though, is no one ever supported you to that point to be like, well, what do you got?
Yeah.
And that's like, you guys, that was the beginning of Wendell's kind of journey on Team Athlete. But when you went through the heartache of divorce and you went through the experiences you went through, like you didn't give up. You leaned on the people that you could count on. And, without getting too, I guess, maybe like detailed and stuff, there was a time when you had to make a decision. It's like it's almost like that point of no return where you're like, what do I do?
Yeah.
And you had to face a very powerful reality of like, do I walk away from something that like I really truly believed was going to be a forever and always, to if I don't do this, what's gonna happen on the other side? And I remember you being very nervous about your kids. And I remember thinking like, brother, your kids are resilient. From what I've heard, they're gonna be okay, but they need to see that their dad's okay. And the conversation was, that there might be a possibility if you could just put everything else away and just focus on that one relationship. And I remember you saying like, I might have to walk away from the team. And I remember being like, wow, I've never had someone have an ultimatum like that. I can't even imagine the heartburn that caused you, and I'm going to say that for both of you, you made the right choice, which I say that now almost emotionally, brother, because I'm like, how hard was that for you?
Yeah.
Jeez, man.
Um,
Because we're a bunch of dudes with beards and a bunch of gals here that like to run and hang out and recover. But like, that's
my
a
God.
whole other level of emotional investment.
Yeah. No, it was. And I love my kids. My kids are
I can tell.
right. They're phenomenal. They're great kids. I just love them. And and that's the pains and the struggles and the thoughts that come along with addiction and just seeing the effects that it has on them.
Yeah.
And that kind of happened. And it was like, look, if you want to try to figure something out, then you're gonna have to leave all this other stuff and you have to focus just on the kids and everything else. And um it couldn't have been couldn't have happened that way. I wouldn't be
Right.
where I am if I would have allowed that to happen and if things would have happened that way because um I have a firm just belief that we heal in community
Yes.
and
I love that.
and our addictions thrive in isolation and the only way we can heal from those is through community.
Mm-hmm.
It's through getting out there. It's through being vulnerable with other people. I was allowed like um you know being able to come to the team to be with other people who could empathize with me and see the pain and see the hurt and they just put their arm around you. They didn't have to say anything, didn't have to do any words. Like um you know what really I think the healing began with we came to one of the meetings and I think there was an aid station for John Bozung's one of his races. And at that aid station, it was like, okay, hey, Kenny and Earl were like, hey, we signed up to do this. And Janice was like, I think Janice was actually the one who signed up. And she's like, hey, Kenny, Earl, can you
These
guys
are
help
all
me?
teammates of yours
Yeah,
now. Yeah.
yeah. And can you guys come help me? And I had work that morning. And I'm
Mhm.
like, oh man.
Yeah, and you work in Salt Lake, which for you listeners, where we're recording now from Orem, where Wendell lives, is about 29 miles, about 30 miles away ish.
It's 35 miles away from Pleasant Grove.
Yeah.
So,
And
yeah.
downtown Salt Lake, it's not easy to navigate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so I was like, but I saw the energy they had and they were talking about this and I wanted to be a part of it.
Hmm.
And so I'm like, I want to be a part of that. And so I was like, you know what? I want to do that.
And so John Bozon, who was a dear friend of the team, one amazing athlete in and of himself, created a race, Squaw Peak 50. What's it called now? It's like something
Oh,
else.
yeah.
It'll always be that for us, but it's an endurance race, and it's not easy. And without the volunteers for the aid stations, it wouldn't be possible for these athletes to
Yeah.
do this. And we typically get some of the more challenging,
Yeah.
like aid stations. And so you go to John's house, and John is we want to call him the most disorganized, organized man we know. And I love him to death. And so we roll in there, and typically you go to his house and you just grab stuff you think you're going to need.
Yeah.
He's just like, pick what you want. And you found yourself being the
gosh.
substitute for a substitute,
Yeah.
if I'm not mistaken,
Yep.
correct?
Yeah. I had no clue what I was doing. Steve and other team members like, hey, I have something else. Could you go pick up the stuff? And I'm like, okay.
You
I'm
think,
like, I'll
okay,
show up and
easy.
there will be stuff there. I'll pick it up and take it. Right. But I
Oh,
got
no.
there, and
Yeah.
this was actually before I'd ever even met Janice. But I
Yeah.
get there in the garage, and I'm like wearing an Addict Athlete t-shirt, and I show up, and I'm like, yeah, I'm here for an Addict Athlete. You know, we're doing this Windy
Pass,
Windy Pass, and
which is a nightmare to climb. Oh my
yeah,
gosh.
yeah. But yeah, that's another story. But so I show up there, and I'm like, it is chaos,
Hmm.
and there's just stuff everywhere, and I'm like, what do I do? I
And-
thought it was all going to be labeled. Here you go, load it up, get out of here.
And Windy Pass is the most intense, important aid station of the whole race because it is so far to get to. It's after the most hellacious climb you'll ever make. And if you don't have water or fuel, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
Because you can't stop there.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
it's harder for you to go back than it is to keep going.
Yeah.
Like you're past the point of no return.
And I had no idea what supplies we needed. I
Mhm.
had zero clue.
You've never done an aid station like
anything
that?
Like that. I'd never done an
Uh-huh.
aid station, period. Right. I mean, I'd ran track and cross country. What's this aid station stuff?
This is
Right?
crap. Uh-huh.
Yeah. So I show up and I'm lost and I'm just like wandering around. And John's like, well, I have these boxes for the bread because you don't want the bread to get smashed. And he's like looking around and John, like his ADD is off the charts.
I love
right?
it.
And so
Yeah, it's so great.
he's doing this, but he's getting phone calls from other places and there's other people there picking up stuff. And he's just like, and I'm just sitting there.
You're like,
deer in the
oh,
headlights.
crap.
Like,
Uh-huh.
what in the world? What is
So
this chaos? What did I
funny.
get myself into? And then this lady's there and she's like, she looks at me and she's like,
I can totally see this.
wait, who are you? And I'm like, what? I'm like, what? You know, she's like, who are you?
Yeah, here's this
And I'm
blonde
like-
girl calling you out. You're like, what's this?
I'm like, what are you
Huh?
like? Who am I? Like, I think back now to your story when your therapist, like, well, who are you? You know, I'm
Yeah.
like, no, it wasn't that kind of who are you? You know, it was like, who are you? And I'm like, Wendell?
My name's Wendell. Yeah.
And she's like, I know. She's like, no, like, she's like, you're wearing an Addict Athlete shirt. You know, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm here with Addict Athlete. And she's like, you're on Addict Athlete? I'm like,
She's like,
yeah.
I
And
don't
she's
know
like,
you.
I don't know you. She's like,
poser.
I've been doing Addict Athlete for years here now. And I'm
That's
like,
so funny.
oh, and I'm like, well, yeah, I just was asked to, like, I just recently started coming. And she's like, and I'm like, and she's grabbing stuff. She knows exactly what to grab.
Oh,
She's done
yeah,
this.
it's like second
She's
nature.
an old pro at this, you know, and has done so many of her own marathons and ultras and everything.
Yeah, she's an
else.
ultra runner. She's an
Yeah,
athlete. Yeah.
Yeah. And she's just said she took pity on me. Let's
Yeah,
be
she's
honest.
like,
You
and
know?
she probably found out you're doing Windy Pass. She's like, oh, honey.
Yeah. Oh,
come
yeah.
on.
Yeah, she was. And the crazy thing is, she was wearing a walking boot at the time too. Like,
Mhm.
she was recovering from an injury and everything else. And she's like, "Okay, here." And so she starts grabbing stuff and she's putting it in boxes and all this other stuff and like doing all this stuff. And I'm like, "Okay, she knows what she's doing." So she
Oh, man, so
gathered
good.
everything together. And she's like, "By the way, he's never going to find those bread boxes. So just go."
I love it.
And,
She like knows John inside and out. I love it.
And so she's like, okay. And I'm like, all right. So we did, loaded everything up, and that's when I met Janice. And so anyways, we did the Windy Pass. I went up there and hiked up there, and I remember it was just the most brutal like hike. And like here I am, I'm like trying to, you know, get more in shape, and I'm trying to do the keto thing. And so
Oh
I'm
my
like
gosh.
packing like my own stuff, my own snacks and stuff. I'm like, I got peanuts, dry roasted peanuts.
Oh,
And I'm
geez.
hiking up there. It's so hot. I'm like dehydrated. I'm putting those in my mouth. They're turning into like just this
Peanut
paste.
butter.
Yeah. And
Mhm.
I'm like, oh, this was terrible idea.
It's what is that? That it's about, was it 6 miles?
Yeah, I think
It's
so.
about 6 miles straight to heaven.
Yeah.
I remember the first time I went up there with Kenny. My kids still think Kenny is a god because he carried 2 watermelons.
Yeah.
And they're like, "How did he do that?"
Yeah.
I'm like, "We did it slowly, remember?" Like,
Well, and I blame Kenny for this too because
mhm,
he was like, I'd met him and Earl, right?
mhm,
And Kenny's like, "I'm gonna do this." Well, something happened, and I don't really blame him, but something happened and he backed out. He couldn't
yeah.
do it. He had something else that came up.
I
He
think you
couldn't do it.
realized, like, that sucked last time.
And so I'm like, "Oh,
Smart guy.
man, what did I get myself into?" And so I remember hiking up there, and Jerem
Mhm.
was one of the people who went up there too, carrying this huge backpack with water and all this stuff, and it's heavy, and it's like, "Oh my gosh," like, I thought I was gonna die, but made it up there. It survived the experience.
So now not only are you doing like the athletic part, now you're doing the service part. And I think that's what makes Addict Athlete such a beautiful thing is it's not
Oh,
just
yeah.
about athletics. It's not about bigger, better, faster, stronger. It's
Yeah.
about, what impact can we make? What change can we do? What can we give back to the community that we once took from? And you embrace that wholeheartedly.
Yeah, and I kinda fell into that because of the people around me who had already embraced it, right?
Hmm.
Because after that event, then, Janice had signed up to do the other one that John does. It's, not
Kachina Mosa.
Kachina Mosa,
Hmm.
and I'd already had this experience of doing one aid station, and,
Now you're a pro.
yeah, no,
Hmm.
so not, but that community, going back to that sense of community and healing in community, like, I knew Kenny and Earl, like, Janice was inviting Kenny and Earl to go down there and help her as well,
Hmm.
and I'm like, "Well, I don't wanna miss out on that. I have work, but I
I
don't
know
wanna
those
miss
two
out on
guys. I
that."
want to
Yeah,
go. Yeah.
and so I was like, kinda like, "Can I do it too?" And I know I work, but at least, because they were gonna start at, like, 5 or 6 in the morning, I'm like, "At least I can be there for a couple hours, help you guys set up or
Hmm.
whatever." And so I did, and I jumped in and did that, and then it was just kinda off to the races. That core 4, of
Yeah.
us, we started, like, this group and just as a friendship, just
Yeah.
as healing, and just this idea of service and community and everything else. And then we started walking, and we started walking, every morning together, and, we started it came up this thing called what was it? The Ultimate
The Ultimate
Unicorn.
Unicorn,
I
another
think
little race in that same area.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and Kenny and Earl were like, "We're gonna do this," and I'm like, "Well, I can do that," and went from that idea where I'm not an athlete, I can't do any of this stuff, kinda transitioned, started believing in myself because other people believed in me,
Hmm.
and saw through this community and through everything else that, like, really, I can do a lot more than I thought. I have all these
Yeah.
limiting beliefs that say I can't do that, and they're my own beliefs, but then there are also other beliefs and burdens that other people have placed upon me, and
Hmm.
I've allowed them to place it upon me. So I'm not blaming them, but you start to believe when other people say things and you're like, "Oh yeah, I have evidence, right? That yeah, you're right. I'm not this person."
Yeah, and I love that too. The Ultimate Unicorn was awesome for you guys because you got Coach Holly on there, you got KP out there,
Yeah.
you had a bunch of other folks, and Janice came up to support you guys because she was still in the boot, I think, at that
No, she
time.
did it.
Did she do it?
She did it, but she was sick. She
Oh,
got really
that's
sick the
right.
week before,
That's
and
right.
so
Yeah,
she had really bad asthma
and I
attacks and
think
like
Coach Holly had
yeah.
COVID, and I'm like, "What the
Yeah,
crap, you
she
guys?"
did. She
Yeah.
did, and it was just insane, but, Janice was like we trained for it, like,
Mhm.
and
Oh, yeah, you
it
guys did.
we trained so much for it, and we getting ready and everything else, and that's where all the healing comes,
That's the
is
good
in
part.
those moments,
It's not
right?
the race
It's
itself.
not the race.
Mhm.
It's not the race because the race is an individual thing for the most part, right? But we stuck together as much as we
Mhm.
could. Everybody else was smart enough to, sleep during the night and everything else, and not me. My addict behaviors, like, oh,
Keep
I'm
going.
gonna. If
Yeah.
I knew if I stopped, I'd be in trouble. So I was like, nope, gonna keep. And my son Anson came
Yeah.
up, and he did 2 loops with me as well,
So awesome.
and ended up it's a 4 mile loop, and ended up doing my goal was to get 50 miles in that 24-hour
Mhm.
period. I ended up doing 52, so I
Good
was
grief. So
so
you're
I
an
was
ultra runner too,
yeah,
man.
so I was happy about that, and but
That's insane. I don't know if you've ever told me that. Like, that's incredible.
yeah,
Like, we should have celebrated that a little better because that's incredible, dude. Going from a guy who said he can't run, like in his first little 4 or 5 miles, like speed walk and run, to being an ultra marathoner in literally less than a year. That's
yeah,
incredible, man.
yeah. Well, and again, it goes back to the community around you and
Yeah,
surrounding
lift
you
him
with
up.
and we all lifted each other up, right?
Yep,
What is the saying, like, all boats rise to or like the tide,
100%.
right? So
Hmm.
it's people who believed in me and started forming friendships and things that kind of, I
Which
never,
is weird as an adult, right? It's hard because like when you're a kid, it's kind of easy,
yeah.
right? I mean, I
Hey, you
remember
want to play
taking
with me?
I take my kids to the park all the time, and as long as they're about the same height, they're like, "You want to go play?" And they're like, "Yeah." We can't do that as adults. We get arrested. Like hey, Wendell, you want to go play? Like that sounds,
Yeah.
but that's what it is. It's about building the relationships through like hobbies and interests, and that's
Yeah.
what Addict Athlete brought. And
It really did.
I think it's awesome too that at first she's like, that Janice gal's out there, like, who are you? And then now all these years later, like had the opportunity to unite you two in marriage,
Yeah.
and you make an amazing team. And I don't think she realizes how amazing she is, because she's kind of the, well, what comes next, like roll up your sleeves.
Yeah.
um, those women in our lives, Marissa as my wife, Janice is yours, like they definitely have inspired us to achieve greater things that wouldn't put those other ultimatums on. They're not looking for stature. They're not looking for anything else other than like, let's experience this life together.
Yeah.
How has that changed for you to
Oh
be
my
able to
God.
be more mindful of you and knowing that they're okay? Like, you hear me say this all the time. They don't need us.
Yeah.
For some reason, we've convinced them to want to hang out with us.
Yeah.
It's a very different relationship, isn't it? When it feels more mutual than maybe one sided at times.
Yeah. No, it really does. And that has been what has, I think, affected me the most, and prompted me to want to change and to do better and be better,
Yeah.
is Janice. I had a slip, and it was, now it's been a year and a half, almost 2 years ago, something like that. And in our relationship, at the time, we were engaged, I think, to be married and stuff. And and she came to me, and I wasn't honest, I wasn't forthright, I didn't tell her what had happened, but
Because
she.
those are old behaviors, and you're
Yeah,
like, "Ooh, crap,
exactly.
this is
Yeah,
scary," and you
yeah,
knew what to do last time, so why
yeah.
not
and
this
I
time?
and I didn't want to, I had that fear of loss, right? I didn't want to
Mhm.
lose this, I didn't want to, I was like, oh my gosh, if I tell her, if I'm honest, everything else, then what happens? Like, that doomsday, just like, oh, the
Absolutely.
worst is going to happen. And so I wasn't courageous enough to speak out and say, hey, I'm struggling, and this is what I'm struggling with, and so she knew my past. All those
Mhm.
days on the trails and everything else, we talked, right? And we
Oh,
talked
yeah.
as friends, and we got to know each other as friends, before being, romantic or anything else like that. And so when I had that slip, and when she confronted me about it, and I finally was, honest, and it took me a couple of days. It took a couple of days of her dragging it out of me,
Yeah.
honestly, that active behavior where I was like, oh no, trying to minimize everything and whatnot. I did. I tried to do all that stuff again. And she said, look, I'm familiar with addiction,
She's like, "I'm not
right?
dumb.
She's
Yeah, I
like,
know this.
you're not
Uh-huh."
gonna, she's like, you're not gonna fool me with this stuff. You're not gonna do this stuff. And then finally she got to the point, she's like, look, here's the thing. Whether you and I work out, I don't know if that's going to happen. She's like, I have a lot of processing on my own. I have a lot of these things that I need to figure out. And there's a lot of betrayal trauma and stuff associated with this as well. And she said, however, even if we don't work out, she's like, I love you enough, and I love you and believe in you that you are a good person. And
Mm,
she said, you know what? You are not your addiction. You are not what that's not who you are.
right.
At your core, that's not who you are. And
That's
she said,
amazing.
like, look, you need to go deeper. Like, you do all this surface level stuff, and you do everything to check the list, check the boxes, right? Hey, I'm this. She's like, but you need to go deeper. And she's
Mhm.
like, I don't know if that means you got to go to a residential. I don't know if that means what it looks like, right? And she's like, but I know that you need more. And not for me.
Mhm.
And she didn't say, you know, not for your kids. She's like, your kids, they'll figure out
Yeah,
themselves.
that'll
They're
be okay.
resilient, right?
Mhm.
She's like, but you need to do it for you and really
Beautiful.
understand you and understand your problems and your issues and things you've experienced. And in that moment, I felt like, probably for the first time ever in my life, somebody truly saw me for who I was at my core.
Yeah.
They saw me and they believed in me. And it was like you talked about with Marissa, that sense of having somebody who wanted more for you than you even thought was possible to have for
Exactly.
yourself, right?
Yep.
And it reminded me of another group that I'd been attending with the LDS Church and 12-step program, and there was a guy in one of the groups that I was in, and he talked about some other things, right? And I reached out to you as well at that time and said, hey, what about intensives and looking at the costs and all this other crazy chaos, with
Hmm.
all that stuff. And you're like, I'm not sure if you need that intensive stuff, but I agree. There is something you need to go deeper. You need to get to the
Hmm.
root of this. And and so this other guy, who was in one of my other groups, he's like, I remember him talking about like he'd gone to some retreats, right? And he'd been part of some other groups, not just LDS 12 step or, Healing Through Christ, which is where I met him. But, and so I reached out to him and I said, hey, I know I haven't talked to you in a year and a half,
You
right?
remember me? Yeah.
And,
Hmm.
he's like, oh, he's like, yeah. And, I said, I need help. I said, I'm struggling. I need help. And I remember you being, brave enough to talk about some of this other stuff. And, can you tell me about it? And so he introduced me to Husband Material. And Husband Material, the founder, his name is Drew Boa. It's a nonprofit organization, and they help men who struggle with, pornography addiction, sexual addiction, and their core philosophy is to heal the boy to free the man.
Beautiful.
And it just kind of resonated with me. And so they had a free conference, like it was an online thing. And, it was like a month out or something like that. And I was like, I was gung ho. Like, I want to join right now. I want to do this. Well, they only do this every 6 months, right?
Hmm.
They allow you into their academy every 6 months, and it's all online. There's a lot of Zoom meetings and that kind of stuff and whatnot, but they have a curriculum that you go through, and you really just kind of understand and get to that deep trauma, and try to understand your story, and
Yeah.
what, not trying to eliminate the act out behaviors, but understand why you go to those act out behaviors. And so I signed up. They had a 2-day free online thing, and I'm like, and signed up, and little did I know that, that I was hooked.
Yeah.
It just
It resonates.
it resonated because for the first time I felt like, oh my gosh, there is some hope. There's a different way. There's more tools, right? I look back at my foundation, I look at all these other tools, and I look at the LDS 12 step and Healing Through Christ and all these other meetings and whatnot. And I'm like, they got me to a point,
Yeah.
right? Um, and it wasn't enough.
Yeah.
Right. And Husband Material has allowed me to go deeper. It's allowed me to do what Janice challenged me to do. It was like,
Yep.
get rid of the surface level stuff. You're really good at that. You know this too well, right?
Hmm.
You know all the right answers. You know what to say, but there's more, and I can tell.
So
And
amazing.
so that really kind of changed everything for me. I jumped
Drew's
in.
been a guest on this podcast
Well, and that was
years
the crazy
before.
thing is I
Yeah.
remember you saying that, I came to you and I'm like, "Hey, yeah, I'm gonna try this out." And you're like, "Wait, is that Drew Boa?" And
I'm
I'm
like,
like, "Yeah."
dude, do it. Yeah.
Yeah, and you're like, "I did a podcast with him." And so I went back and I listened to that podcast. It was,
That was like 2020. That
yeah,
was right around the time I think I almost met you. Was right
yeah,
around
yeah,
there.
it
Hmm.
was. And I was like, "Oh, wow." And so I got heavily involved with Husband Material.
I'm a
And
firm believer in that, and we plug that quite a bit on the Agents of
yeah,
Recovery,
yeah.
and so we'll put a link to that to this as well.
Yeah, and it just allowed me to really kinda go back and go understand some of those questions that you talked
It's
about at your
exactly what
core.
you needed, man, and I've seen it. I've watched it. There's since Janice kind of said, "Hey, you're more than this." And I remember when Marissa said that to me, and I didn't believe her. And I thought, "I'll
Yeah,
prove you wrong," and then look what happened. Right?
yeah,
Whenever we try to prove them wrong, we're like, "Oh, I guess you know what you're talking about."
yeah,
Um, I've seen you grow, Wendell, like exponentially. I mean, you have become, like, I would say, a very strong power hitter in helping people overcome this. Because for me, for you and Sione, like when I started realizing that this was a big issue, I thought, well, there's probably a lot of guys, and me serving as a bishop, I saw that a lot of people struggled with this.
yeah,
And I always kind of thought pornography addiction and chemical dependency, chemical addictions, they're the same. They're not. You know, they obviously kind of chill in the same parts of the brain, but that's about where the similarities end. And I took I was almost a year of doing my own research, my own understanding, trying to figure out the components and how they link to figure out what a behavioral addiction is before we started our men's group. And it's interesting. When we started our men's group, it was small at first, getting quite large now after the 2 years. but I built that for you and for Sione because I needed to know about it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, we're doing this and you're not even coming to it. And then you started coming because you're like, well, I get it now.
Yeah.
And you're a huge influence on this. I look to you with a lot of folks that are coming to me because you have a different, unique approach and understanding with it. And you're right. You have to heal the boy to heal the man.
Yeah.
And so many of us think, we don't need to do that. I can just stop using it.
Yeah.
That's not that easy.
No.
You've got to figure out where it started and what the false beliefs you had to start to believe in are and were before you can change them.
You do, and you have to understand, right? For me, one of the big parts of it was again that healing that inner child, that 7, 8-year-old, right? Who wasn't prepared to handle what happened,
Mm-hmm.
and who wasn't safe, and that boy who was just struggling, and just there was so much with that, right? And so as I went into that deeper and really kind of like understood it and went through the academy with Husband Material, and it's a 6-month program. And tried to join as many calls. They have a lot of resources and different times and different things and all this stuff. And it's like so much material. But it just a lot of different things resonated with me. And one of the things that really resonated with me the most was this idea of internal family systems, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which kind of does away with that black and white thinking.
Yes, it does.
And the black and white thinking is like, I did this behavior, therefore I'm a bad person. And that's what I love about Addict Athlete as well, is like, we don't identify as addicts. Is it a part of us? Yes,
Yeah.
it's a part of us. But I also have all these other good parts of
Mm-hmm.
me and these other things. And so with internal family systems, it's like we identify, there's a part of me that wants to go and lose weight but there's also a part of me that wants to eat an entire bag of Oreos.
That's me,
right.
man. Yeah.
And so it's like, how can those parts exist at the same time?
Mm-hmm.
If I'm in black and white thinking, I'm like, oh, well, I messed up or I, acted out or whatever, then I'm an addict again. Right. And that's who I am. I'm destined to be that. Right. I'm just going to resign myself to that. But no, we can look at it differently. And we can say, yeah, there's a part of me that has those addict behaviors and those things, but there's also a part of me that's a dad. There's a part of me that's now a husband, right? There's
Mm-hmm.
a part of me that's a coworker, or a mentor or whatever. And all those parts can exist together.
Yeah.
Right. And that doesn't excuse those parts of me that act out or
No.
that have those desires or those addict behaviors. It doesn't excuse it. It doesn't say, okay, yeah, you can,
Yep.
no, that's just part of you. That's who you are. No, it doesn't.
No, it doesn't.
But it allowed me to go back to this belief that, oh, wait, maybe I am at my core. Maybe I am good enough. Maybe
Right.
maybe I was affected by some other things. And that's, when I go to my act out behaviors, that kind of stuff, it just helped me understand why I went to those behaviors.
Mm-hmm.
It's because the boy inside of me was hurt.
Yeah.
He was hurting. And so now that's allowed me to see that, like, when other people are struggling and in the middle of their addictions, I don't see them as an addict. I don't see them as somebody's like, oh my gosh, why are you doing this again? You know better.
Yeah.
I see him as somebody who's hurting.
Yeah.
And so rather than look at him and say, what's wrong with you? Why are you doing this? Can't you see what you're doing to yourself and your family?
Look in the mirror. Yeah.
I
You've
look at
done
them
it.
and say, I wonder what's happening to them. I wonder what pains they have inside of them. And it's just, it allows me to see that with myself first, and then it also says, well, if that can be true for me, well, it's true for everybody else. And so it's just flipped my thinking. It's flipped everything about me. And it's just,
true.
It's gone from this head knowledge where I would always seek out, the best books and all this other stuff. And yep, check the box, I listened to that one, to just this heart knowledge and this passion inside of me now.
Yeah.
That I just want to help other people, not to have to, I want to be a resource for other people who are struggling with the same things that I struggled with, and just let them know that they aren't alone. There is hope. There are ways to understand this and to be better, and it's allowed me to, with help and with encouragement from somebody who believes in me and Janice, to say, you know what, I want to do more of this and I want to be more involved. And so it's allowed me to go back and now say, hey, you know what, I actually want to go back to school. I want to get my master's degree. And that hasn't been without its setbacks, right?
No.
I was down the road. I'm like, here we go. Everything's ready. Financial, all this stuff ready to go. and 2 dang essay questions, short essay questions, got me denied from from my application, and so I was like, "Oh,
That
man."
unsaid university is going to be very sad that they didn't choose you, which I think is cool
Uh,
because obviously you're not meant to be there. But my thing is too, brother, is like, yeah, like, you know, our relationship has grown in a lot of different ways. It's kind of funny. You being able to be, oh, I would qualify as an expert in this, helps me in so many ways because I have a resource in you. Does that make sense? So what started off as me helping you has now absolutely had, you helping me, and I love that about what this team offers.
yeah,
I love about the community, about, we all do this together. We all heal together. We don't just simply grow old,
yeah,
but we heal together.
yeah,
And I think you've done that really eloquent. I think one of the neatest things that I've seen in your journey that was so subtle, that meant a lot to me. Well, you guys inviting me to link you two together in marriage, that was pretty wild because I'm like, wow, they're like my children, right? Yeah. Um, that was very special. But for me, one of the neatest things that I'll hold precious was when we did our first Salt to Saint relay. It's a bike race. We start in Salt Lake City, Utah, and bike all the way down to St. George, Utah. So from the top of the state to the bottom of the state. And you had invited your son Anson, who again is an amazing triathlete. It's an amazing kid. His wife is amazing. She was on our team.
yeah.
And you're a grandpa now, which is mind blowing because you got one up on me there. But like I have a very strong memory of you two. Like, and it was still, I mean, it was not early in the divorce, but it was still like things were changing and growing. And I remember just looking over at you two and both of you just smiling, like, yeah. And Janice was there. And I thought, wow, there's no way he would have thought this would be happening a
No,
year or two ago. Like, and it
no.
was, for me, it was like, it's so cool. Since then, I know you've had amazing conversations with your other kids. I think they know what your heartbeat is. They've been able to sync the rhythm with it.
Yeah,
And you didn't just stay for the kids. I think that you are living now for your kids, if that makes sense. Like, it's
yeah.
made you a much better father. It's made you a much better friend, a much better husband, having all those experiences. And so you can't, I don't think, ever look back and be like, all that was horrific, because man, they were all necessary steps to get where you are today.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you're spot on there. I thought my life was over. I
Hmm.
really did. In those moments, I thought, what's the purpose?
Hmm.
Like, and just like I thought, I'll never be good enough. I'll never be enough. And I'd resigned myself to that. Until I found the community, I found the team, and they supported me through this and helped me little by little. Like you said, that's the beauty of community is like
Yeah,
I may not be strong here, but somebody else may have a strength there.
absolutely.
And if I can lean on them for that strength, maybe that can make me stronger so that I can then help somebody else out.
Hmm.
And it just goes back to bolster that idea that our addiction thrives in isolation, but we heal in
It's
community.
called self-efficacy. It's an Alfred Bandura. He coined that concept as self-efficacy, which means if you see someone do something, you're like, wait a minute, if they can do it, why can't I do it?
Yeah.
And it's the most wild thing. And I thought, well, that's kind of an interesting, theory as you're going through your graduate school. But then I see it in real time, and what it looks like is what you just said. When we first started working with John Bozon, the race director of the Squaw Peak 50, Jerem had ran that, and his first time doing it had his bladder rubbing against itself, started whizzing blood, and he had to drop out. And I'm like, dude, what are you doing? Like, to me, I thought it's the most foreign thing. Why would you do this? He's like, dude, it's the coolest thing. And I'm like, I don't know. So then when Addict Athlete began, we went up and did an aid station for John. And it was like me and Coach Jensen and a few others and Jerem. And then we had such much fun that the next year I lost half of our aid station guys because they wanted to run it.
Yeah.
And then more people wanted to run it. Then they got me to do it. And I'm like, holy crap, this is insane. One year I dropped out because I'm like, this is a nightmare. I thought, how hard could it be? Oh, damn, dude. The next year I was a little more prepared. Jerem got me through it. Um, but self-efficacy is, you see something, like, I can do that.
Yeah.
That's why I think you are such a crucial man in the men's group and whatnot, is because you had that, like, well, if they can do it, maybe I can do it, which means that new guys coming in, like, well, if Wendell can do it, maybe I can do it. And that maybe can be, you absolutely can.
Yeah.
So I love what you said about that. Yeah. You did the work, but the community was there to help. They were there to support. They were only there because you allowed them in and you showed up. If you hadn't have went to John's house to pick up that stuff, can you imagine how different life would be right now?
Oh my gosh. No.
Out of your
No,
comfort
I
zone.
can't. I
If you
can't.
hadn't have shown up for that first run
Yeah.
that you said you couldn't do, you
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? Like sometimes you got to do stuff that scares you, stuff that's uncomfortable,
Yeah.
and show up, right?
Yeah. No, it's so, oh my gosh. Yeah. I have full chills right
Hmm.
now as you're saying that because, um, my best friends, I mean, that's who I'm with right now, right? Kenny, Earl, Janice, like that's, I love how you talk about with addict athlete, faith and fear being the same thing,
Hmm.
right? Same emotion, same thing. They're both a belief in something we can't see, something that we believe in. We think it's true,
Hmm.
but we don't know, right? And so where are you going to choose to put that belief? Are you going to choose to put it in the fear side of things and let that fear cripple you and hold you back? Or are you going to put it in the faith side of things and say, you know what? I'm going to dip my toe in the water and I'm
Do it
going to
anyway.
see. Yeah. And to just let go of those expectations and the things of like, oh, well, what if I fail? Well, great.
Yeah.
I love how you've talked about many times, and I've shared it many times in the groups and stuff, and the people I've been working with husband material, because now going through the academy, it's allowed me to help others. And so now
So
I'm
good.
leading a couple of different groups and triads as they go through the academy now. And but you talk about how one of your favorite family movies is Meet the
We
Robinsons.
just watched that the other day here,
Yeah,
here,
yeah.
here for the team. Yeah.
Yeah, and how when the son fails at something, everybody applauds.
Start cheering.
And
Hmm.
it's like, that's the kind of behavior, that's the kind of, like, just thing that I wanna champion, is like, you know what? You didn't fail, you just learned another way that it didn't work,
Didn't work.
right? And so
Hmm.
to continue on, like, the idea I love that Husband Material promotes and with IFS, Internal Family Systems, is be curious. Be
I
curious
love it.
about things.
Hmm.
Don't accept things because somebody told you that that's the way it is,
Hmm.
because that person who told you that's the way it is, guess what? They had burdens and they had other people who told them that. And, they
Exactly.
had limited beliefs and limited understanding as well. And so if I would have accepted those things that were put upon me and that I allowed myself to believe that, hey, you're not a runner, then I wouldn't have done that first event.
Yep.
Wouldn't have come to Addict Athlete. I wouldn't have met in that garage, thought that
Hmm.
I could do a six and
Your
a half
future
mile
wife.
up.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so just I guess when you get to that point, you have to choose. You
Yeah.
have to choose one or the other. You have
Yep.
to choose fear or you have to choose faith. Why not choose the faith? Why not dip your toe in it and see?
You've done harder things.
Yeah, and
Hmm.
if it doesn't work, great.
Now you know.
Yeah, great. Now you know that it didn't work.
See, man, that's why it's been a long time coming to get you on here. It's kind of funny. I'm like, we're gonna be double recording today, so you guys get the second half of warmed up Wendell. But I'm telling you, the podcast we just recorded with the agents is just as powerful, and we dipped into behavioral addictions and whatnot. But Wendell, brother, I mean, I always tell my guests like you got to be on again, but you will be. You'll be here next Thursday for the Agents of Recovery podcast.
Yep.
We'll put a link to that as well. Get two doses of Blue and Wendell here today. But nonetheless, listeners, what Wendell's saying is true. Like, just lean into it. Just lean into it. Don't write
Show
your
up.
future when you haven't lived it yet,
Yeah,
right?
just show up.
Just show up.
Try it out.
Absolutely. And maybe one of these days we'll kidnap Janice, bring her here, and have her be on the podcast because she'd be awesome. I could just hear her being like, I don't think so, coach.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll get her there because she is amazing in and of herself. But nonetheless, listeners, you've been well fed. Again, thank you so much for being patient over the last several months. We tried to figure out where Coach Blue messed up the podcast links, but we're back. I'm excited for this new season. This is season 7. We're rapidly approaching 500 episodes, which is crazy. Like, to think back, we've done that many. But, for all of you, jump on that website, addicttoathlete.org. Wendell's will be going through our coaching training program so that he can help a lot of different aspects of stuff too. So keep an eye out there for him because we'll be putting his contact information out there as well very soon. And the goal, you guys, really is you can't do this alone. You need a team support. No one finishes alone. And the goal is for you to turn your mess into your message. And I didn't know this, but we've been live on Facebook the whole time. I had no idea. So I'm glad none of us picked our noses.
Let's go.
So you guys still have to download the podcast and listen to it on Facebook, just so you know.